Welcome to another edition of the Bones of Advertising. I'm Craig McLeod, and you are.
I'm John. I'm John Douglas. I'm not John. Just John Douglas.
Welcome, John Douglas. Nice to have you on board one more time, JD. Have you got a bone for us to pick over today?
I've got a very small bone, but it's been around for a long time. I was going to say it's better. It's better than our customary bones because it's the bone of tradition. It's the bone of tradition. The role of tradition in advertising agencies. And you will note, if I may, that I have rearranged the traditional blank wall that usually sits behind me, and is now covered with proof of my intellect.
With all of the red scriptures over the journey.
Indeed. Now, all the stuff I've forgotten, essentially, is what I've put there.
Brilliant. Well, fantastic to see the rearrangement. And when we move into traditions, there's a couple that I think most people that are in the advertising world would be well and truly across, and that would be to start off with the Christmas party. I think that is one of the traditions that's held very, very tightly within the group of staff members within the advertising agency. Would you care to agree?
I would. I don't think it's just advertising agencies. I think there's there's businesses all over the world that would fall apart if we didn't have the traditional Christmas party and the traditional the managing director's drunk and has got his eye on one of the junior members of staff, and the traditional creative director vomiting in the back alley, and like all of those little sub traditions that happen at larger gatherings. But yes, there's probably far too many stories that have come out of traditions like that. But I do like the idea of a traditional agency Christmas party. Or I mean, in Adelaide, we used to. I started my career a long time ago in Adelaide. We used to have the agency would have a Melbourne Cup lunch,
right? And
so every Melbourne Cup, we'd work up until about 11 o'clock, and then senior management would get on there, put their finest money going to the races clobber on.
Yeah.
Go down to a very fancy pub around the corner, and invite all the clients, and it would be let's get together and watch the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah.
So it's not just it's a race that stops a nation for a reason. It's just a whole lot of people on the booze, really.
It is. It is indeed a whole bunch of people getting boozed. And I do think that's a ripper tradition, actually. And I think the Melbourne Cup sweep as well within the agency landscape, or again, maybe this sort of transcends agency. Most of my career has been in that space, but love the sweep. And particularly when you've got someone who has this absolute nag of a horse that within the Melbourne Cup, of course, none of them are, because you have to qualify to get there. So all of a sudden they've got up, and if you're okay to tip in a few dollars, you walk away with a few bucks as well, which I think is really, really good from a tradition point of view. And it sort of keeps people, kind of involved and invested in that day. So the Wednesday after the Cup is always a good day for someone.
Yeah. Remember when who was it? R1 won the Cup.
Yeah.
And you had people going around going, "I won." I didn't won at all. No, I won.
Fantastic play on words.
The thing I like about traditions is, like a really good tradition will reinforce the values of the place you're working at.
Yep.
So we had an agency that I worked at once had every Friday, the senior members of the creative department, 4 or 5 of them, would go and have a pizza every Friday, exactly the same place at the same time. It was about a 15-minute walk. You'd walk up, you'd have a pizza, you'd sit in a booth, and anyone who wanted to come along could come along. Like, you knew exactly where the senior members of staff would be. You would be able to have informal conversations with them that either were triggers for something, a bigger conversation, or were just ways of passing down kind of the culture of the agency and the culture of the environment and the culture of the industry down through the generations, and it didn't have to be just creative people. It was media people, account management, production, anyone who wanted to just come along and have a bit of a laugh. But because it was, they knew exactly where people would be, and they knew that it was an opportunity for an informal conversation. And so that there is traditions kind of cement the values of a business. They highlight role models, and they align people to the cultures of an organisation. So, well, we had a tradition. I'm going to call it a tradition rather than a custom.
I feel a Friday night drinks tradition coming on shortly, because that's a big one in agency too.
Yeah. I think that's more just a habit. I think that's just a whole lot of aging alcoholics getting together and thanking God that they made it through another week. Like the girls in the media department instituted at the start of the year a no undie Monday tradition. Right. That was going to be that. So for an entire year, they just decided, and it was, and every single girl in the agency knew about it, and none of the guys did, because all the guys were just kind of like walking around with him. I've got much more important things to worry about, and more important things to.
Did this actually matter? Did this actually happen?
Yeah.
It actually happened.
It actually happened.
No undie Monday.
No undie Monday.
Well, there's an interesting tradition. That's certainly one I wasn't expecting to come to the fore.
I'll tell you the one that I did like. We had I worked for did a lot of work for an architecture firm, and they had this delightful thing every Friday afternoon. They would bring in bread, like just bucket loads of like different loaves and gluten-free and sourdough, all kinds.
Loaves.
And they would have this traditional breaking of the bread. So they had these highly intellectual people, highly creative people, and they would sit around and it was just a way of grounding themselves and reminding themselves of their need to connect to a community on a very basic level. Right. That was kind of the underpinning kind of understanding of the tradition as it was. But it was this delightful way of, again, this formalised way of having informal conversations which allow people to understand the culture and the values of an organisation. I think that is the great thing about traditions. There are, and I will get off my little tradition train at the moment. It's not a high horse today, just a little train. Yeah, like one of those little kiddie trains you see at Disneyland.
We have your little sort of counter bell. So I don't know if you've seen those when you sometimes turn up to reception and you're like,
yeah.
Bing!
Yeah.
And someone comes, rushing out from behind a glass door and says, yes, are you here to see? And, not that those days are happening anymore right now, but that's a fantastic one for us. So that's the new client bell as well. So it's one that's kind of rung on a number of times, bing, 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 bing. And when you've got the dogs in the agency as well, they all start barking. It goes kind of really, gets loose really, really quickly. The other one is bringing on new staff. We've got a bit of a tradition with bringing on new staff. So onboarding over this time we're in at the moment has been really, really interesting in bringing people in via video and actually having never seen the person as well. Mm. But the Friday when they first come on board, we have Friday drinks. Now, we used to have Friday drinks every Friday, which I'm not sure, as you're saying, is tradition, but this onboarding process, and it's great. And during that process, we really get the people that have come on board to try and, talk a little bit about themselves and share a bit more about, who they are and where they're headed. And it's been a good one, been a really good one to sort of, as you say, build the fabric and sort of talk about the culture that we've developed. We also had a great one where we had a personal trainer, which was one that was a fantastic tradition. And we only stopped it when this, lockdown sort of happened and our personal trainer was pregnant with her second baby. But that was a fabulous one. So we would either on Friday at lunchtime, or if it was pretty hot, we would move it to the afternoon and we would have the personal trainer would come. Everyone would get changed into their workout gear and they would head out for an hour of solid, really good,
Love
varied level exercise, which was brilliant. So out the back of that, you'd go back to the office and stay in your gym clothes for the rest of the day, potentially have a drink if we're all together. But yeah, as I said, that's all kind of stopped now because of what we're doing and unable to see anyone. So maybe we'll have to do a virtual workout.
Yeah, I could just lie on the floor and put my legs in the air and it's a very different tradition.
Play another video, screen share or something of, Arnold Schwarzenegger doing some bicep curls.
All you see are these two legs just like,
Yeah. And I think the other tradition as well, some people I've heard about doing a Christmas in July as a tradition as well.
Yep.
Again, sort of talking more about general traditions, but I think that's one that I've heard of a few times as well from the agency landscape, that they enjoy getting together for just another, whether it's called a white Christmas being summer or being winter, or it may be a reference to something other than that. I'm not sure, but in agency land, it probably likely is.
And it just happens out of, they just grow. Like the best traditions, I think, grow organically. So you've got, I worked a freelance at an agency, and they had, every time they would have someone new start, there was 30 or 40 people in the agency, and they would start and I'd like to introduce you to, and they'd read out this person's name, and everyone in the agency would say, "They're all right," all at the same time. And the effect is, the new person will be like, "Oh, they like me." Like, and it's an instant kind of just throw your arms around someone and welcome them into the fold. I like that idea of, habits that become routines, that become customs, that become traditions. That there's a ritualistic kind of nature to traditions, which I really love, because I my love of story, but that notion of being able to be part of the story, and then using your memory of what those traditions are to tell better stories, and to tell stories about how you relate to the world. So they really bring together values and customs and culture in a way that normal kind of day-to-day business can't do, and you can't orchestrate it. It's got to grow organically.
Like culture.
Like culture.
You can't organically change it. You've got to be able to work at it, let it happen over a period of time. You've got to instill values. You've got to instill behaviours that all build and foster that culture. I think you're right. Traditions are exactly the same, JD.
Yeah. It's like the traditional Melbourne Football Club mid-season collapse. There's something cultural going on there that normal logic does not can't explain.
No, exactly. And JD, I think that's another edition of the Bones of Advertising.
The Bones of Advertising.
The Bones. Did I say? Let me try that one more time. JD, I think that's another edition of the Bones of Advertising. Nice work.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you next week.
I'll see you. Don't go changing.